It's the power of
It's all you.
the spirit, eh? It comes with me wherever I go, and it's going to help me with my sobriety. Because, you know, the biggest thing is I do struggle with addictions. Because I'm still learning how to cope with survivor's guilt, you know, and stuff like that. How many people back then I've known who died from complications of AIDS, homicides, overdoses. So, but coming up here was, for me, is to re-energize and to be with strong spirit and good spirits. Danse. My name is Ken Ward. I am originally from the Enoch Cree Nation, which is based just west of Edmonton. My Indian name was given to me as I earned it back in 1991, and I will say it in Cree and in Blackfoot. Sepeta Skomak. And in Cree, it's Kehiona Paces, which means Eagle Boy. So I try my best to earn that Indian name. I come from a family, a very large family of the Ward clan here in Enoch, and it's been certainly an experience for my family to be able to follow my journey as well. So welcome to my world. In the summer of '89, I became very ill, and the symptoms were very classic at the time of being diagnosed with HIV. It was really uncertain as to what I was diagnosed with, but I was really sick. I lost a lot of weight while I was in the hospital. The fear of the unknown of this disease, it became somewhat of an awakening for me. Once I got healthy in October, when I released from the hospital, I should say, I came back to the reserve here at Enoch. Returning back home, I stayed at my brother's on the reserve here in the village. I secluded myself in my brother's house, and I covered all the windows with blankets, and I was afraid because, you know, I was unsure, and it was on December the 28th when my doctor came to knock on the door. And he told me, "I'm sorry, we got the results, Mr. Ward. You got 6 months or maybe 10 years to live." And I said, okay. I was assuming it was probably cancer. But he says, "You're HIV positive." And I said, what is that? You know, I was totally ignorant. And then all of a sudden I remember hearing the news about AIDS. Okay. The fear, the shame, the aloneness of being told pushed me back into my seclusion like I was a child who has been brought up through the system of being taken away and feeling abandoned, feeling alone. You see, I used to be also a drug addict, and I used to shoot up mescaline, cocaine, T's and R's. I could make a choice. I can either just make my fix one more time, make a cocktail of drugs, and just say, screw it, I'm gonna die in 6 months. Well, I'll do it this way. I may as well go with some, you know, the sooner the better. Or, after all those years of being raised in the system and being abused in the red school, being raped at the age of 13 while I was in foster care, all that pain and stuff like that, I figured, well, I think I can make another decision. Perhaps I owe it to myself. If I'm going to die, I want to do it on my own terms. For once, I want to make dying, living and dying with dignity. So I kept it to myself. I didn't tell my brother. I kept silent about it, and I remember when I was at Charles Council, I met this native dude. I was attracted by his humor and his positivity. And he could hear his laughter down the hallway with the nurses, and he was joking. He was the one who brought out some rain and sunshine when I was in gloom and doom and lying in the bed. But he became very compassionate and very, very supportive and loving. His name is David Nelson. David Nelson had become my first support. He reached out because he worked at the AIDS network of Edmonton. And David is two-spirited. And at that time, two-spirited was unbeknownst to me. And I remember him saying something about a pamphlet about Caris House, run by Catholic Social Services. Caris House is like a palliative care. It is also for those who are newly diagnosed. So in December, after the 28th, 4 days after Christmas or whatever, I thought to myself, I gotta get out of here because I know about the hysteria and the stigma, especially on the reserves. And gossip can be a killer to one's spirit. I said, I don't want to face that at this point in time. I need to deal with this. I need to take myself and find some place where it can be safe for me to learn. I was hungry for educating myself. If I'm going to survive, is live as the best I can. The quality of life that at least I owe it to myself. In January, I believe, I decided to make the move. And I had an opening at the Caris House here in Edmonton. And that became a doorway, in a sense, for me to be able to kind of collect my thoughts, to be able to gather strength as to where I'm going. So I chose to learn from these men. And I watched them die, suffer, well, being diagnosed with later stage of AIDS. It taught me about the value and the essence of just how beautiful and just how important each minute, each day, each month can be to yourself. These men taught me a lot. And they became my mentors. It was sad to see them go, but I tell you, there were some good moments in that home. So it picked up my spirit and my will to carry on at Caris House. The staff were impeccable. They were compassionate, understanding. I felt safe. And then I knew that my strength was starting to build and my will to survive and to live, to carry on, to move forward, has replenished my will to say, okay, what else do I need to do to make a change? I knew I had to inform my mother, Lily, to tell her the truth. My mom knew that something was wrong because of the dramatic weight loss, and she said, you can never lie to your mom. But at that time, I said I had cancer. It was a lot more acceptable. So I went to visit her in Enoch. And I said, well, I need to tell my brother, my older brother that I lived with, he needs to be known, and my older sister. So I asked him to meet me at my mom's house. But I told my brother first, Glenn, and I said to him, I'm going to need your support. And he took it really hard. I said, no, I want to go tell Mom, and I want to tell Myrtle. The best way we can do this is as a team. I was going to take my sister to a different room, and Glenn was going to tell Mom in the kitchen. Well, it was really dramatic, and you could hear the shrieks and the cries and say, not my baby. It was harsh. We regrouped and we talked about it. We hugged, and I told him, well, I don't know how long I've got to live, but I'm staying in a safe place. I'm in a good place at Caris House. And he said, okay, my boy. But we're not going to tell anybody right now because of fear. That's fine. So we kept it mum, kept the silence under the table, came back to Caris. And then all of a sudden, my mom has a friend. Her name is Helen Gladue, who is involved with the Indian Healthcare Commission. They were a very strong core group of beautiful, strong women who was involved with the Native Alberta Indian Healthcare Commission at the time. They were the ones who rattled the cages of the governments or chiefs, to fight for healthcare. My mom called me. And she said, Kenny, guess what? Helen and the ladies are going to be starting this rally, and maybe you should go and attend that. And I said, okay, maybe I should. My mom phones Helen and informed her, Helen, when Kenny gets there, let me know because, and then she slipped and she has that new sickness and she called it hive. And Helen knew and says, and Helen kind of put in her mind, she had this idea of me speaking at this rally. Okay, so I took the mic and I stood there. Hi, my name is Ken Ward. I'm here to support this rally because I'm concerned about my treaty and I'm also concerned about medication. I'm HIV positive. As a result, when I went public, this was the first picture I went public with. And that was my first eagle feather that was given to me by the elders. My mom and Helen were there. And that became the key or the doorway of a journey of who I am as the first native that went public. I was diagnosed back in March of 1990. Little did I know that receiving that has created the pathways, not for me, but for the people who came into my door. And the first one that started to support her was Denise Lambert. Because it was a lonely, lonely experience. Not knowing going public or what risks could come from that. But that feather kind of became my strength in the sense when I looked at my mom and I said, okay, this is a risk that I need to take. And to have a little bit of faith and a little bit of hope that I can make it. As a result, that's the idea, the concept, the Feather Hope Society had begun its birth. The doorway to Denise, who entered my life. David Nelson, now Makokis, Elsie Paul, Rose Marshall, Marlene Patra. And if I forget anyone else, forgive me. We gathered and we met at Dr. Ann Anderson's Heritage Society on 124th Street and had our first meeting there. AIDS Network of Edmonton took us under their wing. There was a sense of solidarity that I felt that grew. I got to meet a very strong young lady who really scared me. I heard about her, I seen her, first Native woman. Her name was Keisha Larkin. I said, wow. Yay, I'm not the only one, the first person. I'm not the first person. Yes, I got somebody else here. And also the first Inuit woman, Nietzsche Gita from up north. You see, as two-spirited people, it was that terminology started to come and started to grow because back then, prior to that, it was native gay men. Now, when we talk about what is at that time, identifying two-spirited, and I found this card and I really liked it. Two-spirit is a form of self-expression and has many different definitions. Generally, two-spirited means having and acknowledging you have both male and female energies. Within some cultures, people who identified as two-spirited have special roles in their communities. And I said, you know what, that's so true. Because I actually witnessed, and I had a hard time to understand two-spirit. What does that mean? How to define it? People are defining it in their different ways. And I said, wait a minute. But it's a matter of practicing culture and tradition and honoring that. So for me, this whole process of how it all began in my role as an activist, but also to be able to just to sit back and watch history take its course. To be able to have this privilege and this opportunity to share my stories and some of the teachings and some of the people that needs to be mentioned is an honor because they were the footprints, what it should be. They were family. So as an old timer, for me, it's a privilege and an honor to be a part of that and to contribute in some small way and to be able to carry on the energies of those people from the past and present who still exist. So this is where I'm at. This is who I am.